I'm joined now by Dr. Judy Ochrietor, Director of the Office of Undergraduate Research at the University of North Florida. Hi, Dr. Judy.
Good morning.
And Alex Bartkowiak, a UNF Biology major and student researcher who's currently doing an internship at Mayo Clinic. Hey, how are you doing, Alex?
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Alex, we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of research and hands-on learning for the next little bit. And I want to start with your background because you sort of had a non-traditional path to college. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so basically I grew up in Jacksonville. I've lived here for like my entire life. So I went to Stanton College Prep for high school. And so essentially after 2 years, I actually ended up dropping out and kind of pursued a non-traditional path. So I went to FSCJ for my associate's degree, actually after working in a lab for about a year in between, and then used that to transfer into UNF and then started doing research there. And then as of now, I've done like a bunch of research experiences through both UNF and then at the University of Florida, and then also now with Mayo Clinic. So,
and what was it that kind of got you out of school in the first place? What was it that was either difficult or not appealing to you about the high school experience?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm sure as a lot of people in Jacksonville know, Stanton is like very academically challenging. So I did really well my freshman year, and then in my sophomore year, I was actually kind of getting frustrated by the fact that I wasn't really able to do as much science as I wanted to, because you only get to take one science class per year. And so at that point, I actually, funnily enough, while I was also leaving Stanton, I ended up winning, I think, third place in the state science fair with my friend. So I knew that that was like what I wanted to pursue. And through that science fair connection, I actually ended up meeting somebody locally in Jacksonville who was running kind of like a makerspace / community biology space. And then I interned there for the next year instead of going to school. So I basically got my parents to sign a sheet that said that I was a homeschooler for a year. And then that's just what I did instead of going to high school. So
you did research?
Yep.
And any particular kind?
Yeah, so that was actually a very strange project where we were working on HSV-2 gene therapy. So I got to do a bunch of cell culturing. So basically you take like mammalian cells and you can grow them in a dish and do a bunch of different treatments on them. So it was interesting because it was a very strange environment. It was essentially like in a warehouse, but we were doing like real biology. And so that was my first hands-on experience with molecular biology. And then from there, I kind of realized like, I want to be a scientist when I grow up. Like I need to get a PhD. I need to like follow the traditional path to, get where I want to be. So that's when I ended up going back to school and, pursuing the path I'm on now.
Dr. Ochrietor, you're a biologist as well, and you teach biology, but you are also in charge of the University of North Florida's Office of Undergraduate Research. So what do you oversee when it comes to student research?
Certainly. Our job is to help students find research experiences on our campus. So there are lots of students like Alex who come in knowing that they want that, but there are many more students who don't realize what's available to them. And so we're showing them what opportunities are available. Once we get them into those research experiences, we can also help to support them through funding, either to support their work that they're doing, or then to go on to conferences and present the work that they've done.
And for somebody like Alex, it sounds like research very much, drove his passion for education and continued learning. But how does it connect with students maybe that don't have his level of drive and fascination with a particular subject?
Certainly. I think there are a lot of students who come into school thinking that they want to do something particular because they don't know all of the great different opportunities that are available. And so usually there's an early class that they'll take where a professor will indicate that there are these opportunities and there are these ways to work outside of the classroom and use your brain in a different way, and apply what you've learned in the classroom. And so we try to help those students, again, find those opportunities. And I think they just don't realize all that's available to them until they come and talk with us.
Are there certain fields that lend themselves more? I mean, obviously, when you're talking about, molecular biology, that seems like that would be a pretty easy transition to research. But what if you're a history major or literature?
We have research experiences all across our campus. There are an amazing number of students in those degrees that you just said, in those majors, literature, languages and cultures, history, that are doing research projects. Usually they're working with community members and working on things that impact our community. Sometimes they're doing things that are impacting the world, and depending on what kind of history or literature or language they're working with. But it, although we have a very strong STEM group at UNF, and also social sciences, really the humanities and arts are doing quite a bit of research as well.
What does Alex's experience tell you about, the importance of research?
I think that he's a great example of exactly what UNF can do for students. You can come in, work with faculty outside of the classroom, get that one-on-one experience, and go on and then move on to research experiences outside our campus, which is exactly what Alex is doing. Getting those different kinds of experiences, really building your skills and making you that much more marketable for when you go to graduate school, or even if you're looking to go right into the workforce.
Alex, I want to talk to you a little bit about the research that you have been doing at UNF with zebrafish. Tell us a little bit about where the inspiration for this project came from.
Yeah, so I work with Dr. Marie Mooney, and she's in the biology department. And so essentially, kind of the inspiration for the project was that I was an undergrad looking for research opportunities. And then Dr. Mooney essentially gave a talk at one of the lecture series that we have at UNF. And so she kind of talked about all this data that she had from zebrafish that she actually collected while she was a postdoc. And so she had this huge data set and really nobody to analyze it. And I was like, all right, I'll take a shot at this. I'll try analyzing this. And so essentially I would just kind of go back to her office over and over again and, try to get through this project kind of a little bit independently at first. And so that was kind of how I got started working with the zebrafish. So more on like the informatics side doing coding. And then actually we didn't have a zebrafish vivarium at that point. So we started building an entire system to house zebrafish at UNF. So I got to basically be there from the ground up, building this whole aquarium. Dr. Mooney actually went for the summer, and so I took care of the fish for that summer. She sent the fish down to Jacksonville, and I got to breed them and get our system up and running. And so, yeah, it's been a really unique experience in the fact that like I essentially have a part in everything that goes on with the fish at UNF. I think it's a lot of responsibility for undergrads, but I think it's great to get us that experience early on. So.
And the direction of your research is somewhat rooted in your own experience with friends and that were going through struggles when they were in high school.
Yeah, so that's like the overarching theme of my own personal interest and some of the work that I've done outside of UNF. More inside of UNF, the work is mainly focused on like rare genetic disorders. That's what Dr. Mooney studies. But I got to tie in like my own interest in neuropharmacology because she was working with a data set of fish that have been treated with different drugs. And so they're all like neuroactive compounds for treating this rare disorder. And so I got to connect like my own passion for it with like Dr. Mooney's passions for genetic disorders, and it kind of came together really well.
And talk a little bit about what your own passion is. Like, what is that area that you're interested in researching?
Yeah, so my primary interest right now is actually working on next generation antidepressants that are like mostly inspired on psychedelic compounds, so serotonergic psychedelics essentially. And so I actually got to do some work at the University of Florida over the summer where I was essentially trying to see whether or not a certain region of the brain was responsible for hallucinations in mice. So that was really cool as well. And so essentially, my goal in the future is to work on projects where people are trying to develop these psychedelics that don't actually induce the hallucinations, so that you can give the psychedelic to somebody. They can essentially not have to go through the psychedelic experience, but get the positive antidepressant effect.
Because they have found a good connection now between the impacts of psychedelics and people who've been suffering, especially with like chronic long-term depression.
Oh yeah, exactly. So like specifically psilocybin, some of the clinical trials are going through right now, and they're seeming pretty promising. So.
And long-term, what is your goal? What is it that you want to do with the skills that you've built?
Yeah, so actually in the summer or fall, I'll be starting my PhD at University of Florida in pharmacology. So, I'd just like to, again, like emphasize like thanking UNF for all the opportunities they provide me, because I wouldn't have been able, to do this had I not worked in Dr. Mooney's laboratory and then got, help from Dr. O and been able to go to UF and have that experience that connected me with the department. And so hopefully I hope to get my PhD in pharmacology and then from there work in drug development for psychedelic-inspired antidepressant compounds.
And not everybody is as perhaps focused or, self-aware in terms of like what they want to do as you are. But what would you say to students that maybe don't have that same sense of, purpose in how research and hands-on learning can help them?
Yeah, I would say something that people don't consider a lot of times as undergrads is that research can prepare you for like all aspects of life. Really, you learn like a ridiculous amount of life skills that are not even related to analyzing data or designing experiences. kind of just like having the responsibility of being in charge of something and like taking ownership over something, like ownership over your learning experience as well, I think is really important. So I would say if somebody has any interest in undergraduate research, that they should just start, no matter what it is, just like get in there. And then a lot of professors as well will say you kind of learn what you like to do by learning what you don't like. And so, you might try something, you might not like it, but, you've learned that you don't like that now and you can move on to the next thing and just keep on growing.
Dr. Ochrietor, I would guess that there's some barriers to this kind of learning. I mean, it maybe is expensive, maybe time consuming.
It is. Depending on the field, there might be particular instrumentation that's needed or reagents to complete the projects. So there are, again, ways that we try to help provide some funding for students. Of course, it's limited, so it's competitive applications that we take and give out that money. Really having donors that would provide assistance and supporting our students would be fantastic. To have, again, support time, support their reagents and things that they might need. Really working with the community is the way that we're going to be able to expand that as best we can.
Well, Judy Ochrietor, Dr. Ochrietor, thank you for being here. Alex Bartkowiak, thank you for sharing your story, and good luck with all of your future research. We look forward to hearing more about it.
Thank you very much.
And take care of those zebrafish.
I will.